Soccer Today is powered by Spin Media. From podcast to video production, visit spinmediadigitalsolutions.com and bring your content to the next level.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, golazo, golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramie, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. I'm Kevin Laramie. Duane Rollins will be joining me in just a second as we take a second to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on that subscribe button and hit that notification bell to be made aware of whenever we upload a brand new video. And of course, tomorrow night, 5:30, the return of Nacho Piatti to Montreal. It's free media and Montreal alumni game. I will be playing. I'm scared, and it'll be a great time. Joining me, Duane, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. I didn't play in any media games, but I did. I'm wearing my ball cap today. This is the Bellwood Bandits. We finished our season yesterday, 6th of 8 teams. I went 4 for 4 with a double and 5 RBIs, though, so I'm okay with that. No errors as a hot second baseman, so I'm available for all your slow pitch needs out there if you want a second baseman with a mediocre bat.
What's also very important is no injuries. You came in with all your tendons, all your ligaments, so that's always very helpful when we're looking at this type of situation. But all kidding aside, I am inviting everybody to join me tomorrow night. It will be an epic adventure at Saint-Claude-Rabillard, 5:30 p.m. here in Montreal. It is free. If you're around the region, you can see Patrice Bernier, you can see Nacho Piatti, and more. Duane, there's a couple names you will recognize from this list of former players that will be on the pitch. Players from the USL and the A-League days of Mauro Biello, Asun Kamara of the MLS days, of course, names like Charles Becquet, Ali Gerba, who I played it with a game before. I have an assist on one of his goals in the indoor game, but this time it'll be outdoors. Great names and great fun. Media will also be present, and yes, I will be playing. Come see me make a fool of myself in front of 10,000 people. It will be a great night at Saint-Claude-Rabillard, Duane, and then my real goal out of this is to come out with both my ankles intact.
I once played in one of those charity events. Carl Lang was against me, the former Canadian international. And I'll tell you this, she had to retire because of her knee at that point, but she still had the best touch I've ever seen on the ball, alive and in person. And all of the men, because we're men and we're idiots, we're all like, because we got to see how we match up against a female international. And some of them were faster than her, sure. I mean, she had a bum knee and whatever. She was probably going to have speed, but none of them had that touch and the ability to ping a pass perfectly. So don't let anyone tell you that female athletes aren't world class, because she absolutely was that day. It was a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward tomorrow to seeing how Nacho Piatti does up close. You know, it's a couple years removed from his heyday in Montreal, but to see it up close and personal on either side, or just a touch of the professionals, or just former professionals that can just show you how you're still far ways away from ever being a professional. But I'm looking forward to it. All right, all kidding aside, Duane, let's now track back and talk about TFC's weekend. TFC had a victory, third victory in the last 4 games. They're unbeaten in 4. We'll break it down statistically in a few minutes, but let's go back and look at the results against Portland. Big win, signed Jonathan Osorio and the Italian contingent, with Lorenzo Insigne and Federico Bernardeschi both scoring a goal. Toronto 3, Portland 1 at BMO Field. What was your thought on this game?
Well, I mean, look, when Portland tied this game in the second half, my thought at that point was like, oh my God, this shows how thin the margins are. TFC, if you look at these numbers, they dominated this game. There's no question who the better team in the pitch in the night was. Those are crazy numbers, and the XG checks out to the score. I mean, you could maybe argue you could go down to 2, but you'd usually round up at 2.5. So the checks out of the score there, right? So look, it was a fully deserving result, and the fact that they were able to come back, and Insigne's goal off that sort of half volley, immediately after they had allowed, shows that there's some character on this team too. Now, have they left it too late? Probably, but who cares? What matters is this team is starting to gel together, and with a shortish off season, in front of them after that, well, will be short to us, but they have the offseason. I think they can jump into 2023 with full blaze. And I think they're probably going to sign use that DP spot they have to get a defender and make this team what they think can mean a championship team. It was delightful to watch. It was exciting. Bernadeschi's been, I think, better than Insigne, and that's saying a lot because Insigne's been pretty good. But overall, It's also those other players that have stepped in and have stepped up their game. Jonathan Rosero playing for a contract, we should note.
Exactly. And a spot in the Qatar World Cup, right? They also playing for a World Cup roster spot.
Yeah, which I think
he should be okay. He should be okay, but you don't want to leave it up to chance.
Yeah, exactly. He's got all that going on. And then Richie Larea coming back. Richie Larea's been playing on his head in 2 games. He's only been back for 2 games, came running. He's clearly irritated in the way that Richie Larea can be irritated, and he's showing it at the pitch. It's benefits TFC. Now, they need to be perfect. They probably need to win 7 of their last 9 to get in, but I mean, they're all undefeated in 4 right now. So
yes, but it is maybe a little too late. But let's look at this lineup that is undefeated in 4 games, 3 win, 1 draw, 0 losses. That is coming from the loss after Montreal, in Montreal against CF Montreal, the 1-0 loss that Luka McNaughton scored in his own net, and Montreal won that one. It was also, coincidentally, when Montreal started its own unbeaten streak, that is up all the way to 6 now. But let's take a look at this lineup. Of course, there's no Marc-Anthony Kaye as he is injured. Duane can tell us a bit more about it. Jaden Nelson playing in that position. Lorenzo Insigne playing the right attacker in a 4-3-3. Jesus Jimenez being the number 9 literally in that position, and Bernadeschi playing the left attacker in that 4-3-3. Michael Bradley the number 4 in the middle, Osorio to his right and Nelson to his left. The backline has changed depending of the game, with Mavinga and others, with McNaughton moving from this spot to the other spot and Richie Larea joining for the last 2 games. So that part has changed, but over the last 4 wins, or 4 unbeaten game, the 6 attacking and midfielder positions have remained the same.
Yeah, look, Marc-Anthony Kaye's, by all accounts, coming along well, and he should be available to come back into the lineup again. As we were saying off air, does Jaden Nelson deserve to lose his spot, though? He's been playing fairly well, and I think that of all of the kids this year, he clearly has been the one that has stepped up the most and has earned the most playing time, and potentially he might be looking to make a move too. And I certainly probably wants to get at least in John Herdman's eyes for 2026 in that case. Look, another couple things here. Like the defense has not changed in terms of the personnel, but they're not allowing goals suddenly in the way that they were. Why is that? I think it's quite simple. To put it in real simple terms, it's because they have the ball so much. They're attacking so well. They're also, and I'll give Extra Time some credit for this, they said this on yesterday's show, they're losing the ball in better spots. They're not losing the ball in the middle of the field anymore. They're losing the ball in the corners or in an attacking position where they have time to recover, where Michael Bradley doesn't have to make up all of that space on those old legs, and he can focus on doing what Michael Bradley still does really well, which is distribute the ball and break up plays.
And it's funny that we were talking about this, Duane, with Marc-Anthony Kaye not being there. I think both being there, and I think we mentioned this when the trade, is they're kind of like stepping on each other. And I showed the heat map a few weeks ago of the two playing with each other, and they're overlapping a lot. I think when you have Nelson on one side and Osorio on the other, there's no questions about who's playing the defensive midfield role and a pivot type of role midfielder, and who's going for it on the wing back, or at least as a midfielder but attacking the last third. When you have Marc-Anthony Kaye there, it's not his first instinct. So there's going to be something to give, and maybe it's a depth move, but maybe the Marc-Anthony Kaye move, after all the inclusions of all the Italians, turns out to be not the key move, but a depth move, not even for this year maybe.
Yeah, I think everything TFC has done has been with an eye to 2023. I've been saying that all year. It's going to be fun to see if they can charge this back. I think they are going to win probably 5 of those games that have left on that schedule. So it might be closer than we think. I don't think they're going to be near the bottom. I think they'll be closer to the 7th spot. Whether they get there or not's a question. But as you say, they all are putting the pieces together. You can see what the vision is to make this team not just a playoff team, but actually an MLS contending team next year, a Shield contending team, even in a single season rebuild, and really a month rebuilt, right? Which is quite remarkable.
Yeah, that's what you can do with money, Duane. In our lives too, with money in a month, you can change your life too. You can turn around everything.
Yeah. They are the Moneyball team in MLS. There's no doubt, and that's gonna make people not like them in some cases. And I think Toronto is perfectly happy with that. TFC likes to be the big boy in town, and they want to get that. They're going to be jealous that their buddies out in Seattle that they've had so many dances with got that CCL title. They're going to want to get back there. So they're disappointed in the Vancouver loss in the penalty shootout, but they have that stupid tournament next summer that they can focus on. So this is. Yeah, lots of chances there.
The CCL title might have come with a cost for Seattle because they might not make the playoffs, and now it's getting really late in the season. But let's talk about Toronto and their unbeaten streak. 4-game unbeaten streak. Let's have a look at those numbers that I've alluded to, Duane, and I think they're quite interesting. 3 victories, 0 defeat, 1 draw. 11 goals for, 4 goals against only. The expected goals of 7.9, so maybe a little bit of luck in the output of goals, but expected goals against very low, 5.1. They would have been wins anyways, so that's very telling of the performance of the defenders and the midfield to stop the attackers going to the midfield or the defense. The possession has been quite interesting. It's inverted here. So passing accuracy is 82.25. Possession is 50.25. So just above 50% for the possession. Shots on target, 41%. That is skewed with the last game where they had 12 out of 23. But those numbers are indicative of a TFC team that plays in a different way and already with more confidence than they did just a month ago.
Yeah, if you want to go eyeball test versus stat test here, the difference is 3-goal difference in the XG versus the actual goals. Those are Bernadeschi's wonder goal, Insigne's goal from outside the box, and Insigne's half volley to draw the game or to get ahead 2-1 in the last game against Portland. 3 kind of plays that would have had very low XGs that resulted in goals from their world-class DP players. You can't win an MLS unless your DPs perform. That doesn't matter whether you have a mid-level DP, whether you have a high-level DP, you have to have them perform, and so far, so good. I know, Kevin, you had doubts. I'm not trying to throw you to the bus with this. I know you had doubts about this, whether they'd work. I mean, it's early returns.
My doubts were on Insigne. Bernadeschi always, I thought, was the key here, and he was signed a bit later. But yeah, Bernadeschi's talent might be the big difference between successful and not successful here.
I also think that bringing the 3 Italians over together has really helped this bond early. It's not they played together in Italy a lot, but they having that bond in terms of culture. And Michael Bradley speaks fluent Italian too, so it's not like they're feeling alone in a new culture here, right? They can speak their language. They're able to sort of communicate. They have each other to lean on, and that's helped them integrate into a team spirit. And you can see them celebrating together quite affectionately, quite excitedly when these scores happen. There's not any letdown in terms of the attitude there. We've seen it when other players have come over from Serie A, from bigger leagues where they haven't necessarily. I'm thinking of the fella in Miami there, Mr. Duane.
Yeah.
He didn't exactly when he first came over. Joked about how he could play a cigarette in his mouth, and you can tell the emotion wasn't there. These guys have come over with something to prove still. Little guys do that a lot. It's with Insigne and guys that were bench warmers for Juve come over and do that a lot. We have a history of TFC for that. So look, it's working out so well. We haven't had any adversity to overcome yet in terms of their TFC. I keep calling them we, which tells you that they're winning again because I'm going to embrace them, I guess. But nonetheless, it's after a year and a half, which has been a long time of not very good results. It's kind of nice to see some good results again. I'm sure that the other MLS fans are really upset at those poor TFC fans that had to go a year and a half between their title-winning times to get back in the game. Sorry, guys. We're back. Big Bad Toronto's back. Sorry.
29 points right now after 25 games played. They are 12th in the Eastern Conference standings. Miami is 7th with 33 points. And New England, Cincinnati also have 33 points. Some of those teams have 1 more games played. Some of those teams have a game in hand versus Toronto. Do you think there's still a chance for Toronto to make it to a playoff spot? The caveat now is, according to the points per game and this year only, there's a little bit of the tendency is downward. But at this point, it's 43. 43 points seems to be what the 7th spot would get if things continue in the same trend in the Eastern Conference. Can Toronto go from 29 to 43?
Yeah, they can get to 43. I think because those teams are going to be playing each other, that it'll be a little bit higher than that. I think 48 will be the number. That's just a guess, but I think it'll be closer to that. I estimated 6 wins and a draw would be the minimum required out of the 9 games left. If you look at it, they play 5 on the road. They have a lot of direct rivalries coming in there. They have to take care of the home dates. They have to beat New England on Wednesday. That's a necessary evil here in this. If they lose any one of these games in the next 2 or 3, it's going to get tighter and more squeaky bum time, as they say. But conversely, if they beat the New England and they can cut this lead down to maybe 2 points for the end of this week, then certainly you can start to feel comfortable. And when you look at those standings, the other thing I see, Kevin, we're going to talk about this team later, I think after the break. You know what? That might, if Toronto does sneak into the playoffs, there's a good possibility they might play up the 401 and down the 20 a little bit.
That could be interesting if Montreal finishes first and Toronto 7th, or Montreal 2nd and Toronto 6th. That could be the case, but that could also be the case where they fight maybe a NYCFC team or a New York team that is difficult to beat also, but not at home. New York is not good at home. That's an interesting aspect as we continue to ponder what might be over the next few weeks. When we come back from this short break, Duane and I will look at Montreal's unbeaten streak. 6 games unbeaten in MLS. We will look at Montreal's standings, of course, and what's in stores for the Montreal team, and we'll also just continue to talk about the upcoming next few days and tomorrow night. Let's not forget, at Saint-Claude Robillard, Piatti's return to Montreal. It's free for the entire family, for everybody. Come with the family. Come see Nacho Piatti dazzle us on a beautiful pitch. He's still in shape. He just finished his season in Argentina. He's going to come show us and teach us and probably humiliate myself. But on that note, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about Montreal's great unbeaten streak and more right here.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Kevin Laramie, Duane Rollins will be right back in a second as we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube page. Click on that subscribe button and on that notification bell to be made aware of whenever we upload a brand new podcast. Two Solitudes podcast, the latest podcast. Duane and I talk about the Canadian soccer business. That podcast is available on our Patreon feed at patreon.com/2solitudes. And there's a couple human beings that are amazing because they click on that shout out tier button and decided to show us with their money how amazing they think our show is, and they've helped us over the years and they continue to do so on the Patreon page at patreon.com/2solitudes. You see on the screen right here, Pierre, Patrick, Martin, Jordan, hope all is well in the prairies. Ian, Gonzalo, hope you're having a great time in the GTA. Vladimir, Dennis, Daniel, Sean, and Blue Collar Dan. Let's go, everybody. And now it's time to talk about another undefeated streak in Major League Soccer. Maybe the hottest team in the league right now. And 3 of those games are wins on the road. Montreal has not lost in over 6 games. So great run, and we've talked about TFC's run, so here are the numbers from Montreal. 402, 10 goals, 6 goals against, expected goals for 10.9, expected goals against 3.7. Montreal is second in the entire league this season for expected goals against. So yes, they've allowed a lot of goals, but advanced stats would tell you Montreal has one of the best defense in the league. Possession 56% for Montreal, passing accuracy 83, and shots on target 29%. But Montreal, one of the best offense in the East, one of the best defense according to advanced metrics. This is why Wilfred Nancy is maybe the front runner for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, well, I think the fellow in Austin is probably going to win that, but yeah, again, we've talked about this in terms of perception around the league and whether Montreal is going to win awards. So we can have that conversation another day. Look, I have questions. The goals against is an interesting one, and I think Montreal's going to go as far as their defense takes them. They do have a very solid defense when it's on. They've had a couple hiccups games, which kind of skews the overall number. It's weird to see how that happens. I guess it happens to all teams. In Montreal's case this year, it really has skewed it. If you looked at their median goals allowed in the course of a game, I think it would be a much different case. Look, if they can keep playing like this, if they can complete getting these wins against teams that they should beat, but they are beating, and that's what matters, right? Then it creates a winning culture. It creates a culture which can be successful in a single game knockout playoff situation, particularly if they're playing at home. And, if they have a couple home games up there in Montreal, you're going to be playing in weather not as great. You got American teams crossing that border. All those factors play in. It can make for a much better opportunity for them. And I mean, Montreal, the fans there, my Toronto people, they're going to take my Toronto passport away here. The Montreal fans deserve a playoff game. It's been a long time since there's been one there, since 2016. So far so good. And for Nancy, deserves a lot of credit, not just for this year, but how he took over that team last year and managed to get it steered pretty well, pretty quick.
So, Montreal did win against Houston this weekend. It was Montreal's 7th road win this year. This is Montreal's record already. The record was 5 before this year, and it's already 7 for Montreal. This is equally the best road record in the East. They have a better record on the road than at home. 7-4-2 on the road, 6-4-2 at home for Montreal. And here's my conspiracy theory hat, or maybe just looking at things a bit more globally. And the crop of players, like the circle, the heart, the core of this team, were there for the pandemic time. Were there playing abroad. No home game. Your home games were in Miami, and your road games were on the road. You were literally never in Montreal. It built kind of like a mentality, and maybe that is one of the reasons why, even across MLS, and I don't have a hard figure in front of me, but the home field advantage is not what it used to be. Just ask Red Bull fans. They'll tell you the Red Bulls suck at home, and they're one of the best teams on the road. And I think there's something to be said about the pandemic and learning to be playing abroad, but Montreal showing that results on the road parlayed with a good record at home will give you, a chance at the Supporter Shield. Because look, at this point, Duane, if you look at the Supporter Shield race that you can see on your screen right now, Montreal is 5th if we look at the points per game aspect, because some of the teams have played more than others. Yes, LAFC is miles ahead of everybody. Austin, Philly, NYCFC, but Montreal is in that conversation because of their road record.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very surprised if they're able to overcome LAFC. I think LAFC is going to canter to the Shield, but it's a remarkable season for Montreal, a team that yourself excluded. Very few people picked to finish very high. I believe I picked them around 7th or 8th. So I'll hold my hand up and say that I didn't see this coming here. If you listen to like the Extra Time Experts or other shows like that, Allocation Disorder, they all had them around the playoff bubble, and this is a team that's been far exceeded that.
I had them in the final of MLS Cup, and I had them, I think, 3rd or 4th in my final Eastern Conference standings prediction.
Yeah. Just as a little heads up, guys, on predictions, it's nearly impossible to accurately pick an MLS Cup because you're talking about a 4-game playoff at the end of a season. So it's a silly prediction, but we all enjoy doing it. So, yes. And, if you want to see my Premier League predictions, by the way, I tweeted them. We're not going to have a show this year because we're downgrading our European coverage. But nonetheless, that's out there if you want. Look, Montreal, they're just a solid team. And if Joey spends a little in the offseason and brings another Piatti back, Piatti's back in town, you can promote the game again now. Piatti's back in town.
Okay.
If they bring him back in, I know not him literally, he might be a little too older, but if they do that, then it's going to be, they bring a guy like that in there, then they can take that next step. I mean, does Georgie stay around next year?
Georgie eventually is going to move to Europe because he's that good. And he's getting close. He's owning an own goal. He's going to have a goal and an assist very closely. But yeah, those are the questions. Does Kamal Miller and Alistair Johnston stay in Montreal for long? They're going to perform well in November come Qatar time in front of a very popular window shop. And they might not. The window might be this year for Montreal. Who knows how quickly things change.
Well, yeah, that's MLS, though. Look, I mean, not to make this, Montreal fans love it when I include Toronto in a Montreal conversation. So I'll do that for you. So don't worry. I always get your back, Montreal. Toronto just turned things around a month. So things can happen very quickly is my point. And if you're Montreal, as much as you think this is a build for moving forward, and they can go one step at a time and incremental builds like the Canadians might do, or another team there, the Alouettes say. I'm trying to remember teams in Montreal. That would be two of them. That'd be all of them, right? Yeah. I mean, do they have a basketball team? They have one of those Canadian basketball league things.
They do. The Alliance, which is, I don't know about that name. I'm not gonna complain about branding and names, because we're talking about soccer team from Montreal, so it's not necessarily the best example of rebrand. So we're not gonna go there. But sure, the Alliance in the CEBL, which is, by the way, in acronyms having vowels, I'm not sure about it. Anyways.
Yeah, well, there you go. Speaking of rebrands that they learned from, the Alouettes, they were the Concord briefly about 30 years ago, so they went back. Impact should learn that. Anyhow, where are we going with this? Look, the point being that you can't build MLS teams. You can't think of MLS teams like other leagues. This is not a league that you finish low for 4 years in a row like the Houston Astros and get all these top picks. They're top picks that you can then, make into a World Series winning team as long as you're banging drums or whatever.
Exactly. So, yeah. If you're lucky to get a player, never mind a player that will play. That's something else. As we see, you mentioned Houston. I know you mentioned Houston Astros, but I do want to look at the Western Conference for a second to include Vancouver in this potential playoff conversation. One team I think is for sure will make the playoff in Canada, and that is Montreal. I think there's clearly a gap. Montreal is with the upper tier of the Eastern Conference, and the top three, there's a 5-point gap, and then the rest. If we look at the Western Conference, it's not necessarily different, but the gap is Vancouver is below the red line, or there's the virtual red line. There's not a red line on your graphic, on my graphic here, but Vancouver is 11th. 30 points. They have 25 games played. One game in hand with Nashville, but it's so tight from the LA Galaxy all the way to Vancouver. It's 6 teams for 3 points.
Yeah, and you've got 2 teams in the Galaxy and Nashville that are above that line right now that are going in the wrong direction. Again, I'll give extra time a little bit of credit today, too. They pointed out that Nashville was world beaters before they moved to their new stadium, and now they can't do anything in that new stadium. So look, they've got to figure that out. The Galaxy.
So the turf was why they were doing. I don't know if it was turf. I think it was actually grass in the other stadium.
Well, look, when it comes to Nashville, I'll say this: I have been beating this drum for 2 years. That what do I always say? It's one of our bingo cards that goals win games. Goals are how you win in Major League Soccer. They never had enough goals. When they tried to change their system a little bit to get their attacking players into better positions, they don't succeed. They have to play that hyper defensive way. I don't believe you can win an MLS Cup that way. Nashville is kind of falling off. And what's also happening, Kevin, they're in their third year. What happens with expansion teams after the third year?
The allocation bump. And the reason why Alistair Johnston plays for Montreal is because they're trying to get ahead of that curve. Yeah. They're trying to get rid of some of the allocation last year, and they lost some of their good players. But you're right, that's going to be the case. But even with a Hani Mukhtar, that is one of the best players in MLS this year, one of the MVP candidate with Sebastian Driussi, you don't have enough results for Nashville. And Nashville is on the verge of being not even the playoff teams anymore. Teams below them have the same amount of points and less games played. And that will be a difference over the next few weeks when teams become equal in the amount of games played, and when some teams play midweek and some teams don't. Condensed schedule all the way to the September international window that comes in a month.
Yeah, and when you want to continue this allocation bump discussion, then if you want to put your really early future bets in for next year, you might want to put some money in Austin to make a big move in the offseason, because they're going to run into the same problem in a year and a half. Now, they built a little differently. They built similar to Nashville, but that's still relying on building that depth, that spine through getting a little bit of extra money for your domestic players to allow you to play in that way, and allows you to spend in key components as Nashville or as both as Austin has done with their goal scoring.
And Austin right now is second in the Supporters Shield race. They're second in the Western Conference also. I don't even think they should try to keep in touch with LAFC. LAFC with their 54 points, they're miles ahead of everybody. And you barely saw Gareth Bale really be influential yet, and they're still miles ahead. I told you, Christian Arango will look around him and be like, you know what? I need to step up my game to keep on playing. And that's what he's doing. And so LAFC is clearly the front runner. There's a gap, and then everybody else.
Yeah, look, LAFC is the most talented MLS team I've ever seen on paper. I mean, it's hilarious how much high-end skill that they have on that team. It's puts the 2017 TFC roster, which is generally perceived by many neutrals, not myself, many neutrals, as the best team in MLS history based on the results. I don't think this even close. Like this LAFC team is out of this world in terms of the talents on there. While they win MLS Cup, I think they're the heavy favorite to do so, as they should be, but it's a single game knockout. And if they run into a team that bunkers and they get some bad luck and some bad spins, that's why all these other teams have to disposition themselves to take advantage of a hiccup by LAFC. It's rare to get that double. Because this team's talented enough to do it, but we'll see. I mean, Gareth Bale could roll his ankle in the first game. It wouldn't. Oh my God! Can you imagine the headlines around the world if he misses the World Cup because he rolled his ankle in the MLS Cup playoffs? But
well, yes, exactly. Did Wales make the World Cup? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they finished out the playoff. They're in the U.S.'s group. U.S., England, Wales, and Iran.
We have a quick graphic that I kept. So yes, they did in their Group B. So here we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Look, thank you, Graphic Lords, for me being a bit OCD and saving everything.
Yes, there you go. And we'll have lots of time to talk about this in the days ahead. 100 days today, by the way. 100 days to Canada plays its first World Cup game.
100 days till November 23rd, which is also 100 days till I become a father. All right. On that note, I'm going to go play soccer and not be worried or stressed whatsoever, right? What's to be stressed about? Canada, the World Cup, fatherhood, nothing to be stressed about whatsoever. Go ahead, Duane.
I got nothing else going on, man. Remember, I took my holidays around it. We're good to go.
On that note, you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramie, and this show at Soccer Today SPN. If you're looking for the podcast version of this show, you can find it everywhere you find your favorite podcast. That would be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, and all your other great podcast application. Premium podcast available at patreon.com/2solitudes. And if you want to see me play soccer, the return of Nacho Piatti also on the field. You can find this great game at Saint-Claude Robillard. It's free. 5:30 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday evening. Again, it's free for the entire family. There'll be barbecue there that you can buy from Adonis, the sponsor. And you can also watch Patrice Bernier, Asun Camara, Nacho Piatti, a lot of media personalities from Montreal, and also myself making my debut at the Saint-Claude Robillard, where Montreal used to play in the 2000s. It was where the Rhinos played, and of course, great games took place at that field. And I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. But as always, until then, for Duane Rollins, I'm Kev Laramie, and we wish you a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.